All right, guys, welcome back. At this point, you guys should be finished with your chair. I have told you guys to make sure that when you draw your chair that these lines are closed shapes. And this is why I wanted you guys to do this, because in this lesson, we're going to be adding color, and this time we're going to stick with grays, but I'm going to say color. This time we're going to be adding color or shading to our objects, and that's why I wanted you guys to draw each one of your shapes as closed paths, because that's how we fill our shapes. So with that being said, let's get started. So the first thing we're going to do here is we're going to create this in grayscale. We're not going to do this in color, but to do that, we're going to go over to our color section and make this just in grayscale. So to do that, you go to this hamburger menu right here and you drop down and you see this is grayed out. Well, if that happens to you, that's because there's no fill here. Even though you've not got anything selected here, you can still change your fill and stroke. So if you go to this hamburger menu and you can't get to any of these options, it's because there's nothing filled. So I'm going to reverse that right now. And now you can see if you go down to the options hamburger menu, you can see it right there. It's called grayscale. And what this does is it takes all the other colors mixers out, so it's not so confusing, and we'll be moving into color, but right now we're going to simply stay with grayscale. Okay, so we have our chair and we have everything drawn at closed shapes. We have our color panel over here set to grayscale. So now from here, what I want us to do is make a value scale. And we're going to make swatches here, and you'll see what that's going to be for. So I'm just going to make a square right here. So what is a value and what is a value scale? So color value is the lightness and darkness of a color. And what I'm going to do is make a value scale that gives us swatches that we can choose from. So what I'm doing is I'm just copying and pasting, and I'm using my keyboard shortcuts to do this, but I'm just going to make a few of these right now. Let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Let's make an 8-step value scale. So we should have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There we go. So to start with, we have our top swatch, which is going to be 100% black. Well, what I'm going to do is start removing that black in increments until we get down to our lightest shade. So from there, let's say I want to make this 80%. No, that's a little too bright. Let's make it 90%. And then let's just keep going down to 80%. Maybe I'll make it 75. And you may not use all these, guys, but this is what we're going to make, and this will give you options to choose from. So I made that one previously 75. Let's bring this down to maybe 65. Maybe I'll bring this down to 50. Maybe I'll bring this down to 40. Let's go to 30. And we'll go to, let's say 15. Let's just get a pretty bright color there. So now you can see what this value scale is. Now what we can do is just use these swatches here and color pick our chair to start adding in dimension. All right, so the first thing I want to do is, I know that we have our template here behind it, and this kind of lets us see how the lighting comes in and where the shadows are, where the highlights are. But if you guys remember, it changes the opacity of this photograph when you bring it in to 50%, so you're not really seeing the true colors. So if you guys want to have a copy of the photograph to see the true colors in your picture, this is what we'll do. So what we're going to do is we're going to bring another copy of our photo in to show our true color reference. And what I did here, guys, is I went ahead and made me a layer. It's called Color Chair. I mean, it's probably a bad name, but this is just the layer I'm going to use to put this picture on. So what we're going to do is we're going to come back in and replace our chair picture. Here was mine, but this time we're not going to choose template. We're just going to hit place. And when you do that, it's going to bring this picture in at 100% opacity. And I'm just going to scale that down. I've showed you guys enough how to scale. I'm just going to do it. And that is on my color chair layer. Now I'm going to lock that down just so I can't move it. So now we have our template layer. We have our 100% opacity version of our photograph on this layer. And then layer 1 here is our drawing layer. And I can name that while I'm doing it. I'm just going to say drawing shading. All right. So now we've got all that done. We've got our value scale. We've got our photograph that's at 100% opacity. We've got our template layer behind our chair, which we really won't need that much right now, but we'll keep it there so I can show you why. And then we have our drawing layer. So everything's locked and we're on our drawing layer. So let's start coloring it in. So the first thing I want to do is kind of look and see kind of where I want to start. And I think I'm going to start probably on this front leg. And so I know that we have 100% black here, guys, but you do not want to start filling things with 100% black, because if you want to add a shadow somewhere, then you can't go past black, so your shadows are not going to show. So even though this chair is black, I'm going to make these darker colors actually into this color right here, and this was our 90% black. What I'm going to do is I'm going to select my shape. I'm going to color pick that right there. There we go. And I'll turn off my template layer for now. So that's 90% black. And now you're going to see why I told you guys that you've got to make all of your shapes closed. Because when we start coloring this, if you don't have them closed, you're going to have to go in, redraw them, and make sure they're closed to get to this part of the project. So going back to shading, we have our 90% black here. So I'm just going to go ahead and call this 90% black too. So I can just color pick that using my color picker tool right here. And I think I've already showed you guys how to do that. So I'm looking at my picture over here. The light's coming in from the left. So these surfaces here are going to receive the light, and these surfaces on the side are going to be in shadow. So I'm thinking about, well, how do I want to do this? You see there's gradients in here, and we're going to get into gradients later, but for now we're going to use these as flat colors, so we need to kind of make some determinations on how we want to make our shadows and highlights. So for my chair, I'm seeing this color up here, even though it's dark here and it's light here. So if that's ever the case, I'm just going to kind of pick a middle value here. And I'm going to select the one that's, I'll just say this one. And this one we had it set at 75% black. So then I'm looking at this side of the chair, of the back right here, and I'm going to say that that looks lighter to me. So I'm going to pick that section of the chair and I'm going to highlight it, maybe say with this 50% black, because it's got light hitting it from the window. And you can see here it kind of falls back off into shadow. So I'm going to go up here to this one, and it was a little bit darker, so I'm going to go ahead and decide that I'm going to color pick that, and I'm going to put that probably back at the 90% level. And this is why I was telling you guys not to start off with black, because if you want this side of the chair to be darker, you've got to pick that this is the absolute point of blackness where you cannot go any darker. So I wanted to add this dimension to the piece. So I had to make this 90 so I could then have dimension by selecting my 100% black swatch. And there is why you see I did that. And let me fix this right here because I just saw that this was off. And I'm just going to fix that just like so. So now you can see, guys, why you don't need to start with black. So I would just make if you have a dark chair, if it's any kind of dark color, you know, we're going to use our value scale to make these shadows. So that's why I got us to make this scale. So now we know that our 100% black is here, but we have these other options to use. So just me remembering the light's coming in from the top left, so this under here, this shape is going to be in shadow, and I can make that 100% black too. And let me tidy this up a little bit in my drawing, because you're going to run into that sometimes. All right, so where do I want to go from here? Let's go ahead and make these cross pieces right here that go across the back here, and I can see that this is pretty bright right here. And remember, if it gets really bright somewhere and really dark, I'm just trying to find somewhere in the middle. So I'm going to make that part of the back, I'm just going to go ahead and make it, there's 65%. There's 50. I'm just deciding what I want to do. I'm going to leave it at 50 now. I may change my mind on that. But to do that, first I'm going to go in here, and I see that there is a shadow on this side of this plane. So I'm probably just going to take that to a 90% right now. If I feel like I want to go to 100% black, I will. But for now, I'm just going to leave it at 90 until I see some more. Because you're going to see once you start putting these colors in, that things are going to change as you look. So now I see that this one is like, you know, there's a huge contrast right here in light and dark. And I drew these shapes individually right there. So if I would have drawn all these as one shape, I couldn't do this. This is why you got to be really particular about how you draw your shapes. So if you guys run into problems with your drawing of your chair, colorizing it, you may have to go back in and fix what you haven't done. But I'm going to let you guys do that. So I'm going to say that this color on the front of this plane needs to be kind of maybe into this level of brightness. I don't know, that feels a little too bright. I'm going to go down to this 40% swatch right here, and you can see that right there. And then I want to take this shadow side color here, and I'm going to just make this, I'm going to go back and make it back to the 90%. And now you can see that these colors here are different. And that's another reason why I wanted to draw these separately, because I knew that I wanted these to be darker. So I want to go back here, and I'm going to make this probably my 90%. And then I'm going to make this my black, which is on the side of shadow right here. All right. All right, so we're cooking right now. So this side, we know the light's coming in from the left, so I'm going to call this a shadow side. So I'm going to make that 90%, or we can make it 100%. Let's just make it 100%. Actually, no, I'm not. I'm going to make that 90% because I have this little piece up under my chair. And so let me round those off real fast so they'll be a little bit cleaner. So again, if this was black, then you wouldn't see the dimension of this piece up under here. So let me go in, and that way when I make that 100% black, you can see what it does right there. All right, so from there, guys, I have another shadow side here. So this back of the chair right here needs to be in shadow. So I'm just going to get my color picker, and I can see my percentages of black here. And I feel like I want to make this a little bit darker, so I'm probably going to go back to my 90% right there. All right, so I've got this piece now, and it's catching a lot of light right here, so I'm probably going to make this more into, I can make it 50% right now. I don't think I want to get that bright with it. I'm going to make that 50. But I don't like how that's the same color as that, so I'm going to take that one and I'm going to move it down to my probably 60. Yeah, I'm going to leave it at my 60 black, and you'll see that's 65 actually. That's the color I made that swatch. All right, so I'm not happy with some of that, but we'll come back. So this is where you start using your artistic license. I see that this looks really dark on both sides, but I'm just going to decide that I still want this side to be lighter. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go to this one, and I'm going to pick the color I want, and I think I'm going to make it probably the 90%, because it is dark up under there on this one, but again, that leaves me leeway to change this shape if I can pick it. If you ever run into a problem like this, guys, picking your shapes because they're overlapping, here's what you do. So that's not what I want. I want to select this piece right here, but everything's so tight with these strokes right here that I can't select it. So right now I'm going to pick on this back leg of the chair. Well, what you can do is you go to Object up here, and you can go to Hide and Hide Selection, and that's what that's selected. And what that's just going to do is it's going to let you temporarily just hide that, so then you'll be able to get to that shape. All right. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this 100% black. And now you can see the dimension. And then don't forget, I hid this so I can make sure I selected that correctly. So I'm just going to go back into Object and Show All. There we go. All right. So let me go back and bring my picture. And if you want to move this picture, guys, where it's in a better spot for y'all, y'all do. I'm going to shrink it down so I don't have to shift over so much. I'm just going to throw it right there for now. I'm going to lock it back. So from here, I'm going to say I'm going to shade this side of the chair. For safety, I'm just still going to use my 90% black on that. In case I want to add another shadow in here somewhere. And I'm just going to go ahead and do that to show you why, again, why I made that 90% black. Because if light is coming and hitting this part of the chair, there's going to be a cast shadow right up under this. And even though you're not going to see that in my photograph, I'm just being creative. And I'm going to draw me a little rectangle right there. And when I do that, and I go back in, I'm just going to color pick it from here, guys. Add that black, click off, there you go. You can see why I wanted to keep that, because that's going to add a cast shadow up under this piece right here of the seat. And all that'll come together in a minute. So I'm going to say this side is going to be pretty dark over here, so I'm going to call this side, it did pick at that time, I'm going to call this 90% black. There we go. Now you can start seeing why how that works with your 100% black. And you can always change this. So I was like, well, it's a little bright for me, so I'm going to kind of take that down to 95%, just so it's a little bit more subtle. You can see there's a subtle difference in those two colors right there. All right, so from here on, let's just keep going. I'm going to speed up a little bit, guys. I'm going to call this one, I'm going to color pick this shape right here in front of the chair, and I'm going to do it maybe at 75%. I think I'll do the same for that one. I'm just going to color pick from here now, 75%, or you can pick from there. So I know that this shape in here is going to be really dark right here. So let me see if I can pick it. It will let me. So I can make this, I know that this one down here I made 90% black. We'll leave it there for now and see if it feels good to us. It may need a little more contrast in there, so I may actually go in and go ahead and make that 100%. Maybe I'll just make it 95. All right. Let's see what else I want to do. Make the front edge of this chair, and it's fallen into shadow where this pillow is wrapping around. But for now, I'm going to color pick that. I'm probably going to use, that's my 75%. Yeah, I think I'm going to do that. I may change my mind. I'm just going to leave it there for now, because we're probably going to make some adjustments, and I see that I needed to make this adjustment right here also, guys. So let me fix that real fast, because you don't want stuff like that going on. That's definitely not what we want. If you see any gaps like that, fill them in. So this feels weird. I need to make this different. So I can take this. This went from 75 to 90, but I want something in between. So I'm just going to slide this down, add a little more black to it to about 85%. You can see what that did right there. And now this is starting to look too light. So I'm going to bring this color down to probably, that's my 75. Let's just leave it right there. All right, so I'm going to work on this back leg back here, and I know this is a really dark side of the chair. I don't think I'm going to add any additional shadows to that side, so I'm just going to make that one black for now. And that may be a little too dark, but I'm going to see how it feels. But what I can do is I can take this side and make it 100% black and balance that out a little more. And I know that this side of the chair is going to be light, and I know it has a gradient, and we're going to talk about gradients later on, but we're just going to make these solid fills right now. So I know that goes from a really dark to really light, so I'm going to kind of make that in between with a 50% right there. That was 65 actually. You can always put text out here and number your percentages, but I'm going to leave that at 65% right there. And then this is going to be really dark back here in that corner, so I'm probably going to go ahead and leave it to black too. And then the front end of that chair, I'm going to call 90% black, just because there's going to be a little bit of light hitting it from the window right there. So let me zoom in there and see. Yeah, I don't like that right there. I don't have that drawn quite correct right there, so I'm going to move that right there and make sure that I do that right though. See, this is where you want to make sure you have your curves right, guys, because you don't want gaps like this in your artwork. So I'm going to zoom in here and fix that. I'm going to be looking out for this stuff, y'all. So y'all make sure y'all do it correctly. These shapes and all have to be lined up, and one has to be behind the other, or however we're going to do it. So anyway, starting to get happy with that. Let's look at these rods right here. This is where we're going to start talking about highlights. So you can see these round radiuses, they catch light, and this is a glossy surface, so you have this highlight right here. And so I want to put that in there, and that's what's going to bring our artwork to life. Because yeah, we can go in here and I can select this bar here that I made, and I can color pick, and I can make it 90% black, which is great. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, but why do that when we can add highlights to make that rod have more of a rounded look to it? And again, another piece I missed over here. It's what you guys got to look out for. I'll do it. So I'm just going to start using my imagination in here. I see that there's a highlight right there, so I'm just going to draw one in here. And I'm going to start here. And it's rounded, so I'm going to round that corner right there. And then I'm just going to kind of take it, and it's kind of behind that leg, so I'm just going to do that number right there. And I'm going to go really light down here, and I picked my 30%. Okay, and you can see already, you know, the difference that's making. And I'm going to change the, I don't know if I want it quite that tall over here, so I'm just going to arrow that up a little bit. And that's a pretty good round edge. I'm not going to fret over that one. So you can see where we're adding those highlights now. So now I can continue doing that on all these. I'm just going to use my shift key to select all those, because I know I'm probably going to put all those as the same color. And I'm going to go ahead and back to my 90% black right there. So I can do the same thing as I did on that one. I'm going to add a highlight to that rod down here. So I'm just going to zoom in so I can see what I'm doing. I'm just going to do a little quick. Just going to round that corner a little bit just so it feels good. And I'm going to go back and color pick my 30%. And that's way too wide. It's taking too much of the black space. So I'm going to go in and reduce that size right there to more. Just real subtle, just a real thin highlight right there. And I'm going to go ahead and save right now. Shaded. Because you do not want to get into all this work and lose it. So you can see where our highlights start coming into play. I'm just going to save those for now. I just wanted to show you that, but we're going to come back to that. All right, so just looking at this, I'm going to go down here and do these feet. I'm just going to make these again. If you want to do multiple shapes at one time, I'm going to go in and select this one and this one, and I'm going to color pick those as a 90% black. So these rings, since they're in a direction where the light's coming down and hitting from this side, they're probably going to be a little bit brighter. So I'm just going to select these two rings and double click on my hand here just to jump back out. I'm going to make those the 75% black. All right. Okay, so that's where we're at right now. I want to see if I want to make any changes, and I think I do. I still feel like, I don't know why, but I think maybe this is just too bright for me. So versus picking one of my swatches, this was my 40% swatch. I'm just going to add a little black to that and dim it down, and you can see it growing darker right there. I may go down to, I'm looking now at this portion of where it intersects, and I feel like, you know, I just want that to be dark so this pops out. So I'm gonna go with that. Yeah, that's not too bad. And I may just bring this darkness down a little bit too while I'm at it. And then the same here, I just feel like that needs to be a little bit darker, so I'm gonna do it like that. And if I want this to be the same as that one I just did, I can just go back in and color pick that one. So I'm feeling okay with that right now. So you can see now how much dimension we're getting with these shapes. Again, if you did not draw your chair in closed shapes, you're going to have to go back and draw it again because you got to be able to fill those colors. So now we've got these guys down here, which were really complex, and I just really simplified them in my drawing. And I'm going to go back here and make a couple of adjustments. Not like that. Zoom in on, zoom in, zoom in, so I can see what I'm doing. You've got to be able to see what you're doing. Go ahead. I can fill that space up. So this is another tool I want to introduce to you guys, and this is where if you do just have line shapes, where there's nothing wrong with that because you can add texture with line, but you can see it looks very amateur when you have just a line that has no personality to it. Let me show you how we add personality to lines. So I'm going to go ahead and shift all the, well, I'll just do one at a time just so you can see. So when you select a line that's not closed, you can customize how that line looks up under here. You see it says uniform. Well, if you scroll down, you can see width profile 1, and what that's going to do is it's going to kind of bring that to a point as it comes around. And it just kind of adds a little bit of flair to it. Makes it feel more professional. And you can see how that changes that. And then you're not finished there. You can always make that stroke a heavier weight if you wanted to, like that. I'm not saying that's how I want it, but you know, you can see the difference in between this and this. Even though these probably aren't curved quite as much as I want, but I can again go in there and I can change that by dipping that down just like that. And you see how I've drawn those. So even though I know this looks pretty ugly over here, I'm just going to leave it right now. Again, for the tutorial, I'm just showing you guys how we can use the tools in Illustrator. So now I can do the same thing over here, is pick these two strokes. I made these 2 point and weights. I'm going to go ahead and do that. Then I'm going to go to uniform and do this. I'm just picking my first one, and it makes it come to a point on both ends of the stroke. So it just makes a big difference in the way it looks, guys. And so if you've got lines in your drawing that aren't closed and they're that way for a reason, that's how you can make those look a lot more professional. And I'll show you again where I did that, because I made a solid shape for this pillow, and then these are just individual lines because I knew I wasn't going to try to fill these with a color. So the reason why I said that is because I'm going to do the same thing over here that I did with those strokes on those rings, and I'm going to go ahead and select quite a few of them just so I can knock them out at one time. And that's where I again would go to my profile right here and change those, and you can see, and then I'm going to change that to say 2 or even 3%. You can see, I know it's not just the greatest thing ever right now, but I'm showing you what that does. That just changes everything right there. And you know, I think I missed some in here, so I'm just going to kind of just do them as I go and look and see, and change my stroke weight. Really helps just round everything off and give it a finished look. Do that to these two. I may have grabbed that one, but let me see. Yeah, I had. But I'm going to change those, make that 2 point. So what I did here, and you'll see, sorry. This pillow I drew all the way around because I knew I was going to fill it with a color, and then this side of the pillow was in shadow, so I made this shape on its own, and then these are just lines on top. So what I'm saying is I'm going to take my cushion that I made for my seat, and I can do the same here if I want those lines to give a little more edge to it, a little more personality. I can go in there and pump that up a little bit, and you can see where it will give it some dimension and line width, and you can just play around with that how you want. I'm going to bring that stroke up even a little more. So I like that. I like that. So now I was going to say, well, I need to put the top of the chair right here. There's nothing there. I forgot to draw it. So I need to draw that. But I kind of did that on purpose, guys. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in here and draw this. But rather than sitting here trying to draw back around all this, well, I know in my mind that this seat is going to be under this cushion. So I'm just going to come over and do this. And yes, that looks really bad right now. And I think you're probably going to know where I'm going with this. Well, what I can do is first I'm going to color this portion of the cushion, because I made this cushion on its own in one shape. And it looks crazy like that because remember, I've got this profile selected for my stroke. But this is one shape right here. So I knew it was going to be in shadow. So I drew it like that on purpose. And here is where we're going to make this side of the chair have form. And now you can see where I'm going. Well, so this seat right here, I didn't feel like having to redraw through all this. So I just set it right here. Well, what I'm going to do is pick the color I want. I'm going to make it 100% black. And then what am I going to do, y'all? I'm going to make this go behind this cushion. So if I go to Object and Arrange and say Send to Back, there you go. It's going to send it to the back. So you can see now, I didn't have to redraw that. It just lays up under this portion of the cushion. So now I'm going to take this shape of my chair, which I made. Even though it looks different, it's still, because of the profile I made on the stroke, it's still one shape. So I'm going to undo that and put it back. So now I can fill that cushion with my lightest color right there. See how it's coming along, y'all? I'm going to go ahead and save that. So now, what am I looking at? I know I have these two things, but I'm saving them for a minute. These lines don't need to be black in this cushion. You see the values aren't that dark. So just to soften that, for me, you can draw and have as much contrast in your drawing as you want. But for me, I'm going to make it a little more realistic, and I'm going to bring and change these colors of this stroke. Right now, they are 100% black. But if you try to pick a stroke with your swatches, what it's going to do is it's going to try to turn those into shapes. You see that? So we don't want to do that. So on your individual lines, you may have to color those with a custom color here, and you can see where I'm doing that. I know that one of my swatches is 65%, so I'm going to just leave them at 65 for now, and then you can see where I missed some. So I need to come in and select those guys, and I'm going to make those 65%. That just kind of softens it up a little bit. It's probably still too dark for my taste, but I'm just going to leave it for the tutorial. All right, so now I'm going to skip the ring. I'm saving these guys to last, but I do see a couple of things. So there is a highlight here, and I want to add this dimension to that. So I'm just going to kind of draw that in, y'all. You can see where I made mistakes there. Drawing it. I need to close that gap back in. Sorry, y'all. I didn't realize that I'd made such a mess of that down there. And that's the stuff I want you guys to be looking for and fix in your drawings, because you want it to look good. Go ahead and add that curve here. So I know that this is a rounded leg, so I kind of just want to make a couple of highlights here just to kind of make this pop. So I'm going to actually use some different tools. You have a rounded rectangle tool here, and you can use that, and you'll see it makes more like a rectangle with rounded shapes like that. And you can control how much it does that, but I'm just going to leave it at the default for now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use that rounded rectangle tool and draw me a shape right there, and then I'm going to come back over to my value scale, and let's just pick this lightest color down there. That's too light, too bright, too bright. Highlights don't have to be white. They don't have to be, they can be fairly dark. For me, I still think that's too light. So I'm going to keep going, and that is going to be my 50% gray. Now I'm going to do the same over here. Make me another one over here. And it remembered my fill color that I just used, so I don't have to change that color this time. I do see that I want to fix this though. All right. Okay, so now what? What do I see over here in my picture that I want to do? I see a few other highlights on these rings right here. So I'm just going to draw these with my pen tool real fast. I'm just going to kind of make some curvy shape right here that kind of flows around this leg right here and comes back around and something like that. And I'm going to make that 50%. I'm just going to type it in here because I know that's one of my swatches. There you go. So let me look at my picture again. So now I see, you know, it goes kind of really dark back in here. So I'm just going to kind of throw that in here right now, because you can see how this over here kind of needs to start going into shadow, because the light again is coming from here, hitting that leg, and then this is going to be in shadow back here. So I'm just going to create a little shadow shape. I'm just making it up, y'all. I'm not thinking about it. I'm just kind of going to let it happen. And then I'm going to take and color pick that with my 90% black right there. And if you don't like the way that shape looks, you know, you can go in and adjust it like we've been doing. So I'm going to round that around and make that come there and do that right there and maybe that right there. Okay. Beautimous. So you can see where we're going with that. That glossy effect you get by using mid-tone, shadow, and highlight. I'll do the same over here. This little ring got a little funky. Let me straighten that up right there. Right there. Didn't do too hot right there. There we go. All right. Okay. So I'm going to do this real fast on the other one. And if you feel like you want this highlight to be brighter, you can do that. You can take it to 40 if you want right there. So if you want, if you don't want to draw all that again, you can come over here and I'm going to copy. And I'm just going to hit just regular paste. That'll just throw them on the page. So you see what I can do then is I can just bring those guys over without having to draw them again. I can rotate them. So if I want that one, because this is in a different perspective than the other one, but you can kind of play with that and get it where you want. You can stretch it out that way or stretch it out that way. And you can see here where I'm adding in those values to create that dimension. So I just want you to practice this, guys, and really try to get a feel of adding light into your artwork. I'm talk as I'm going here. I'm going to do these one last things here, and I'm going to let you guys finish this out on your own. I do see some spots here that I need to fix where I put this seat in. If I select that node and slide him over, you know, it's behind this cushion, so now that's good. All right, let me go to the dreaded ring things right here, and I'll just see basically I've got some highlights right here on each side of this, and then I've got some shadow. So I'm not going to overthink it. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to fill that with my 90% black, and I remember that this leg right here was 90% black. So now I can go in, and that's when you can see more mistakes. When you take your strokes off, you can really see where you didn't line things up correctly. So let me pop that back up there. All right, so I'm going to start on this one. Just kind of pop that right there. That's not perfect, but we're going to let it go right now. I'm just going to make some highlights. So let me just go back here and check again how I want to do these. So just 1, 2, 3. And I know that this is not exact to what that is, but again, it's just a tutorial here. So I'm going to zoom in real close here, y'all, so I can really go feel what I'm doing. I'm just going to make me a little highlight right here. Just make me a little shape. Don't have to be perfect. I'm going to color it, I think, with 50% is what I was using for my highlight color. So I'm going to use 50%. I can rotate these. You can change them like that, guys. There's plenty of options now that I'm showing you guys how to use the tools. You know, you can really start having some fun. Which I'm just going to take that. If I want to stretch it up, make it a little bit taller or like that, I can do that. Then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy and paste it right down there and just give it the illusion of that having those edges right there. And you can see what that does once you add those in. I'll do this one now. I really got to do a lot of work here, y'all, to line these back up. But actually, I'm going to move this down like that. Change that right there. So now I'm going to just go in and add my highlights again. So for this, I'm going to just copy these. And actually, before we do that, I might as well finish this one out. So I know that it's going to get really dark up under here because there's a shadow, because again, the light's coming from this way. So I'm just going to make some curvy lines right here just to give us the illusion of having a shadow back here. And I'm going to make those 100% black. And you can see now kind of what that's doing right there. And I'm going to do the same over here, but I can just take that rather than having to redraw it all. I can just take all of that, copy and paste it, and then I can just move it over here and then rearrange it, because obviously it's not going to be exact, but what I can do is take that and just shift those around just to give me that form of the shape right there. And then I can shift this guy back around if I want and leave him right there. And actually I may just flip him. Let's do it this direction. Why not? Kind of like that maybe. And you can just see it just kind of gives it some dimension over here. And I really don't like that per se, so I'm going to add another node. I'm going to kind of make these a little more zigzaggy. Like that. Maybe that comes down like that. And just do it however you want, guys. Whatever makes you happy. Just think about art. You know, you always say that. It just gives you a way to just use your imagination and do it how you want to do it. Don't do it how I'm telling you. I'm just here to help. So I think after that, guys, I'm going to just add me a couple more highlights here, and I think you see where I'm going with this. You know, you can always make a line like this. If you don't want to draw it with a pen tool, I'm just going to do it a different way. You can use your rounded rectangle tool, and you could come in here, and so I'm going to pick that gray right there, and then you can rotate this just like that. You can slide it in there. You can scale it down. You can make it skinny like that. You can push it in. Let's see here. I'm just going to do it like that. Or, you know, you can just do it with your pen tool. You just come in and simple as that. Just make these little shapes. Just helps finish it off. Even though that's probably thicker than I want. I think I'm just going to draw this one with my pen tool just like I did the other ones. I love the pen tool. That way I can just change these on the fly as I want them. So I just think, you know, there's a few more shadows and highlights I could add, but for this tutorial, I think I'm gonna call it done and let you guys finish it out. I'm going to probably go ahead and make this a little bit darker. So anyway, that's pretty much it, guys. This is how we add highlights and shadows and create dimension. This is how I created my value scale, just to have different values of gray to use to create this chair. Then I have this over here, just a reference image that we brought in, so I can get rid of that now. I won't need that because we've still got our template here, which is where our drawing is on, and that's the one you really don't want to move. But that being said, I want you guys to turn it in with it. The template would be hidden. You can keep these guys if you want to show your value scale, and you can just sit them here off the page. But this is going to be your final product. You'll turn this in as an AI file and also as a PDF. And from there, in our next class, we're going to start going into color. Again, adding more shading and highlights using color. All right, guys, that's it. Have fun with it, and I will see you in class.